that is good enough for me. It brought me to the line of saying, okay, I really do think there's something here. And, these hot spots, off the northern tip of Catalina, Skinwalker Ranch, the Bridgewater Triangle, the Bermuda Triangle. Do you think that these spots may be places of incursion, or where let's say the lines between universes blur a little?
Well, I was just talking to Darcy Ware yesterday. He did Transmedium, that USO show.
Fantastic.
And I was telling him about the Kitsakawa Maru story, where a Japanese freighter crew watched objects moving in and out of the water at this latitude and longitude, which they gave. And that latitude and longitude corresponds exactly to the very end of the Marianas Trench. All right. Interesting, right? And as far as experiences that occur while filming, we were doing Alien Invasion Hudson Valley over in New York State. And we were supposed to go to a place called Nuclear Lake. And we didn't go because the guy that was supposed to take us was, he says, was approached by Men in Black and told if he goes there, he's going to get killed. Okay. And I know this guy very well, and he doesn't lie. So something happened that spooked him, and he wouldn't go to that lake, and that was supposed to be in the production. But anyway.
Well, that's... Yeah.
That alone is something crazy.
I just want to pause. Is this a person you trust?
Of course. I've known him for years.
And he was spooked enough to not go there to include it in the production.
Absolutely.
That says
absolutely.
Something. That
he wouldn't do it. And he wouldn't, didn't matter what the money was. He wasn't going to bring people there because his life was worth more. That's how he looked at it. And so he was afraid. Okay, that's fine. And I totally understand and agree with his resolve not to go. But while filming this haunted house, the homeowner was telling us about this creature that apparently lives in the house, and she said, "Don't say the name, because if you say the name, bad things happen." And in my head, and I know this woman very well, I've known her for years, and I said, "Oh, that's crazy! Come on!"
Right.
And I said the name over and over in my head. Okay, I said, "Yeah, what's going to happen?" And as soon as I said that, and this is on camera, okay, my feet got frozen to the floor, right in place. I couldn't move. Ben Hansen was there because Ben was another cast member on the show. And I said, "Ben, I can't move. I can't move, Ben." And he comes over, "Marc, what's wrong?" And we're trying to move me. My feet aren't moving. And I started feeling tingling going up the top of my feet, into my calves, up my knees, thighs, pelvis, all the way up. And when it got to here, and I literally felt like a head, a disembodied head. In my head, I said, "Okay, I believe you." And it all went away and I could move again. Absolute truth. Okay. That's on film. That I don't remember, but I think that's actually in the show. And I did not want that to be in the show because I was panicked. I was panicked.
And you didn't want it. Yeah. You're like, no.
I don't want that in the show because people just gonna,
vulnerable.
You know why? Because people are just going to believe that it was a stunt.
Like you did it for the production.
And I don't ever sell out for that shit. Excuse me.
No, absolutely.
So I was actually really taken aback by that. So I have obviously had weird things happen too. And I know that it's a very strange world. There's a lot going on out there that we do not understand.
Right.
And I'm not going to sit there and say it's not happening.
Yeah. And I think, that's the problem with some of the mainstream academics let's say the public faces of science, and that is that sometimes it seems that they live in this black and white world, and
well, keep in mind where that's coming from. Okay, I don't have a university affiliation I have to protect. I don't have shareholders I have to protect. I don't have endowments that I have to protect. When you have that going for you, folks I don't have a salary that isn't generated by my own work that I have to protect. So I'm independent. And so I don't have to worry about somebody firing me. I'd have to fire me. I'm the guy to fire me. Okay. So don't point at me. I'm not fired. That was a close one, pal. So anyway, so that said, I think it gives you a little bit more willingness to jump in with both feet when you're pulling your own strings and no one's pulling your strings. So that's what I say.
It's funny, right? Pulling our strings.
Yeah, and people in, not in string theory, but you know what I mean.
That's what I mean. No, that's what I was circling.
I know. People in science are beholding to other people that put them there, in some ways. And so when that happens, you've got to be really careful what you say and what you're willing to admit publicly, and what you think privately might be a different thing. So, and I've seen that with some of the people in science. Well, Ivy Loeb certainly took that on. Neil deGrasse actually finally took that on. So obviously things are changing.
The tide is a-changing, and I see it happening. And I think it is, do you think there's a possibility that there is some sort of controlled disclosure underway?
I don't know if that's true. I think that what we saw in the congressional hearing was absolutely incredible. I think that was a sure sign that something good is coming out now. When you hear someone say, we have bodies, a guy from the CIA, we have occupants. Okay. Can you tell us about them? Not in an open hearing. We have to do in a classified briefing. And then they have the classified briefing, and then senators and congresspeople who are in there come out, and when they're asked about it, say, and you see the look on their face, and it's like, yeah, it's crazier than I realized, basically. That tells you something right there, So they were blown away. The ties are disheveled. It's like, they had a little reckoning to deal with themselves, about the reality of their world.
Right. And I think for a lot of people in government, especially the older folk, no, not to generalize, but I think they have very hard faith, some of them. Hey, it's Tyler, host of Total Disclosure. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I just want to remind you guys that you can become members and or send super chats, super thanks, and help support the show. You can also check out our new merch shop that does include Total Disclosure merchandise now. It's so worth it, and there's many denominations you can choose from $1.99 to $2.99 all the way up to $9.99. Guys, we hope to hear from you soon. If you want to reach out to the show, feel free to DM me on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram. And this can challenge aspects of that. I don't see why it does, but nonetheless, it does. So, I mean, I guess my question would be that, what advice would you give to like a young scientist who's interested in pursuing a career in astronomy, but also the search for extraterrestrial life? And, I know we know SETI exists, but
extraterrestrial life, that's my specialty.
Right.
My book is The Populated Universe, talks about the populated universe. It talks about why the universe is probably a fundamental haven for life and not the opposite. And that has to do with lots of things, which I outline in the book, carbon, number 4 in the elemental abundance in the universe. We're made of carbon. We need oxygen to breathe. Oxygen fills our atmosphere, sets out like a blazing blue beacon into the universe. And any civilization worth its salt that's carbon-based is going to look for other carbon-based life like we're doing. And so it's going to look for oxygenated atmospheres like we have, because we need that to survive. It's going to find oxygen in our planet. It stands out like a sore thumb. I know Stephen Hawking said, let's keep out of sight. Let's not, get out there into the galactic arena. We already have. 2.5 billion years ago, oxygen started building up in our atmosphere in what's called it was a great oxidation event, the GOE. And that happened a lot quicker than people realized in science for a long time. And that oxygenation was from cyanobacteria, blue-green algae, plankton, phytoplankton. And that meant that there was life in our oceans. And any civilization worth its salt is going to look at this planet and say, there's oxygen in the atmosphere, and it's staying there. Oxygen that is in an atmosphere would tend to dive out of the atmosphere and bond with all kinds of compounds because oxygen oxidizes.
Oxidizes, yes.
Yeah. And so it would leave the atmosphere very, very quickly in relative terms. And so if it stays there for 1,000 years or 10,000 years or 100,000 years, or if you see a planet that shows evidence that it's had oxygen for a long, long time, you can be fairly certain that oxygen was created by life, because it's life that creates oxygen. It's the phytoplankton. Right. And the forests, of course. But actually, the plankton are 87% of the oxygen on our planet.
Yeah, that was something that I recently was told, and I was blown away. So what is the great oxidation event? I've never heard that term. Is that when our atmosphere was essentially created?
No, the atmosphere was already there, and the influx of oxygen into the atmosphere occurred 2.5 billion years ago, and the oxygen levels that we have today were not what they had then, but the oxygen started to increase at an exponential rate, which was, I see you have gone into a black hole.
Did you see that?
Yes, you're in a black hole right now.
What is going on? Oh my God, I just got cut out.
That's funny.
You're going to go full screen for a minute while I fix that.
That's fine. So the great oxidation event was where oxygen built up in our atmosphere. And that started around 2.5 billion years ago. And the oxygen levels fluctuated over time. Carbon dioxide levels have fluctuated over time. I have a record actually going back 500 million years of all the levels of carbon dioxide and oxygen and other elements in our atmosphere. And everything's a major fluctuation, way up high, way down low, way up high, way down low. So seeing carbon dioxide climb right now doesn't really bother me so much. I know that humans are affecting our planet, but I think that the level to which we affect them has been grossly overstated, because we think we're doing more to the planet than the Earth itself can do. Like when the BP oil spill occurred, I was talking to one of the CEOs of the major oil company. I was actually on the phone with him every day. Actually, he called me every day to give me a report on the spill. Why? I guess he wanted a sympathetic ear from someone who believed they could handle the fix. I guess I don't know what it was, but when Charles would call me, he would say, "This is what we're doing. This is what's happening." And I said, "Well, you got a lot of methane that's seeping out into the ocean there, Charles." He goes, "Yeah, I know." I said. And he goes, and they're saying it's going to create a giant dead spot in the Gulf of Mexico. And I said to him, Charles, actually, that may not be true, but please don't take my word for this, okay? You have to let it play out because you have no choice right now. But when you have something like this happen, there's a lot of bacteria in the ocean that will rise to the occasion and rise to start consuming that methane. So I don't suspect that you're going to see a major dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico, like all the environmentalists are claiming. And I said, I'm not saying that because I'm on the side of big oil, and he laughed, right? I said, but I'm saying that because I think it's the scientific truth. And guess what? The methane bloom disappeared in a period of a month, right? And away it went. And why? Because the methane-eating bacteria bloomed themselves and ate it all up, and then reduced back to their normal numbers.
Right.
So in other words, the Earth has a way of dealing with this stuff. It's been dealing with it. We have, and when he talked about the millions of gallons getting into the water, I said, well, each year there's hundreds of millions of gallons seeping into the oceans in natural seeps, because the ocean floor is cracked and fissured and oil seeps up into the ocean.
Where we get the oil from the Earth.
Yeah. So the question is,
yeah,
that's right. So why is it that people think that their ocean